I almost ignored the message. At 2:07 am, my phone buzzed beside my bed, vibrating softly against the wooden nightstand. I was half asleep, wrapped in the deep mountain silence that felt heavier than city darkness. The cabin was supposed to be my escape. My name is Serena. I was 28 years old, working as a veterinary technician in Denver, and emotionally exhausted after losing my grandmother Yvonne, the woman who raised me after my parents' divorce. Grief followed me everywhere, and when my best friend Marian suggested a solo trip to the mountains, I agreed. I needed quiet. I needed to fall apart without an audience. That's how I found a Pinebrook cabin. Cozy, secluded, 5-star reviews, owned by a retired teacher named Diane Mercer. Everything looked safe that first night. I unpacked, lit the fireplace, poured a glass of wine, and felt peace settle into my bones. For the first time in months, I went to bed early, listening to wine moving through pine trees. Then my phone buzzed again and again. 3 messages from Diane. Her words sent a chill through me. She begged me to wake up. She told me to leave immediately. She said a woman who stayed in the cabin 3 weeks earlier had disappeared without a trace. She said someone might still be accessing the property. My heart began to pound as I sat up in bed, suddenly aware of the darkness around me. The cabin no longer felt peaceful. It felt like it was holding its breath. I didn't know it yet, but my life was already seconds away from ending. I turned on every light in the cabin, trying to calm myself with logic. Doors were locked, windows secured. Nothing looked disturbed still. My instincts screamed when I returned to the bedroom. My stomach dropped. The closet door was slightly open. I knew I closed it. My grandmother had drilled that habit into me as a child. Monsters lived in open closets. She used to say I stood frozen, staring at the dark gap old cabin shift. I told myself, what expands? Drafts exist, but fear crawled up my spine. I turned on my phone, flashlight, and approached. Inside, my clothes hung neatly. My suitcase sat untouched. But then I noticed a seam in the back wall. Too straight, too perfect. I pressed against it. The wall moved. It wasn't a wall. It was a door, hidden, hinged. My hands shook as it opened inward, revealing a narrow, unfinished room. A sleeping bag lay crumpled on the floor. A backpack, spilled clothes, and food wrappers. Someone had been living there watching. Then my light swept across the left wall and I saw the photographs. 6 women taped in a neat row. Different faces, different ages, all unaware. And in the center was me, standing by the fireplace earlier that night, smiling with a glass of wine. The photo was taken through the window hours ago. That meant someone had been inside the cabin, while I slept peacefully in the next room. My knees nearly buckled. I backed away, nausea rising, my heart hammering so loudly, I thought it would give me away. I didn't think I ran. I sprinted through the cabin, my bare feet slapping against cold wood floors. The fireplace glowed faintly, mocking the safety I thought it offered. My car keys were still on the kitchen counter. I grabbed them with shaking hands. Every shadow felt alive. I expected footsteps behind me, a hand on my shoulder, breath at my neck. The front door flew open, an icy mountain air cut into my skin. The forest stood silent and watching. I ran to my car, fumbling with the lock until it finally clicked open. I threw myself inside and locked the doors instantly. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. My hand shook as I called 911. Words spilled out in broken fragments. Hidden room photographs. Missing woman. The dispatcher told me to stay inside the vehicle. Help was coming. I called Mary next. I couldn't speak at first. I just cried. She told me to stay put. She was coming. Minutes felt like hours as I stared at the cabin through my windshield, convinced someone was watching from the trees. Then sirens pierced the night, winding up the mountain road. Red and blue lights flooded the forest. Officers surrounded the cabin, weapons drawn. They searched every room, including the hidden one. Everything I described was real. They found a journal inside the backpack. Detailed notes, observations, plans. The last entry was about me. Another name appeared again and again. Felicity Grant. She'd stayed there 3 weeks before me. She never left. The police caught him 2 days later. His name was Orson Vale, 43 years old, a local handyman. He had helped build the cabin years earlier and designed the hidden room himself, originally as a storm shelter. After Diane's husband died and the cabin became a rental, Orson kept a spare key for over a year. He used that space to watch women. Felicity Grant was 31, a nurse from Boulder. The journal described her routines, her fear, and what he planned to do. I wasn't allowed to read those pages. I didn't ask twice. 4 months later, I testified in court. Orson sat silently. As I described finding my own photograph on that wall, I expected rage. I felt only grief. Grief for Felicity, who never got a warning message. Grief for a family. Grief for the version of myself who believed safety was guaranteed. Orson was convicted of first-degree murder, stalking and breaking and entering. He was sentenced to life without parole. Diane sold the cabin and donated the money to a victim advocacy organization. In Felicity's name, she apologized again and again, but some guilt never fades. Marin stayed with me for a week after I returned home. She didn't force me to talk. She just made sure I wasn't alone. I don't travel by myself anymore. I don't assume safety. I check closets. I trust fear. Diane's message saved my life. She could have waited until morning. She didn't. A stranger's warning at 2 a.m. pulled me out of a grave I didn't know was waiting. I almost ignored it. I never ignore that feeling now. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Felicity never got the chance to run. I did, and that knowledge stays with me every single day.